Hello and welcome to today's Battle Mech review. Today we're going to look at one of my favorite mech with the Highlander. Between that and the Archer, I generally would go with the Archer just because that's the thing that I've been piloting most of my life. But having played around with Highlanders and borrowing the Commander's one every once in a while, just to, shake it down, I have a whole lot of fun piloting those things and moving them around. It is a fantastic mech from the Star League era that's actually toughed out the Succession War fairly well. Not as well as some other things would, but it did a pretty good job at it. So let's get into it. While a whole lot of people associate the Highlander with being a command mech nowadays, when it was introduced in 2592, it was basically a basic trooper. The Highlander was meant to hold the line and fight things like Thunderbolts, Orions, while Mackies and Pillagers would go around and break through the enemy line. It might sound a little bit weird for a mech that size to do that, but look at what was going on during the Star League era, and, that's the kind of money the Star League was ready to throw around. It was highly mobile for a mech its size, one of the largest mechs with jump jets at the time, and it was prized in cavalry unit as well, so it could be paired with things like guillotines or wolverines. In these cases, it would probably serve more as a command mech for the entire group, while the others would range forward, while the Highlander would stay in the back providing support and giving orders to the other soldiers. The people who really made the Highlander legendary, though, was the Royal Blackwatch, which was the personal bodyguard of the Cameron family. The Blackwatch used the Highlander extensively, both as a training mech and as command mech for their units, even though the Star League generally wanted the Marauder to be their standard command mech. You have a lot of novelization, Tridio recordings, and all sorts of things about the exploits of the Blackwatch, and, you will probably have heard of what they tried to do when Amaris took power. It is an interesting group of people, but their legendarium might be bigger than what they really did in the end. The main factory building the Highlanders was destroyed during the Second Succession War, and it was the one that was located on Son Hoa. This led to the creation of the 733 series Highlanders, which were the new standard, and were seen throughout the Inner Sphere during the Succession War. Both Aulis and Starcorps were still producing new chassis and delivering them to customers, but it was only a handful a year. They weren't able to just mass produce the darn thing. It took until the mid-30s for Starcorps to start production of a full line of Highlanders, with the factories on Son Hoa being repaired. But it wasn't really until 3057 that the original Highlander 732 and 732Bs came back into production. It took a little while. It was kind of normal, but people really wanted Highlanders, so Starcorps and Aulis was really happy to just oblige. There was another unit which was well known for using Highlanders, and it was the good old Northwind Highlanders. It is a mercenary unit that's been working for quite a few different organizations over the years, but they had their own factory to build and refit Highlanders, and they kept a significant number of them running to the original standards, or at least as close as they could, during the Succession War. The Highlanders even tried to resurrect the Blackwatch during the Second Star League, but that whole Second Star League thing didn't quite work out like anybody really would have wanted. While the cockpit of the Highlander was hard to eject from due to various issues, it also had a protective cowl and a command and control console, which was later imitated in things like the Marauder, making it a superior command mech even though it was not originally meant to be. Your standard 90-ton chassis was equipped with an improved actuator and leg assembly, allowing it to do those big death from above Highlander burials, which were a standard procedure for a lot of pilots. You had 15.5 tons of ferrofibrous plate with case to protect the ammo, so you were very well protected, and even if the ammo went, the pilot generally survived, which is a very good thing. You had a GM 270 engine, like most Star League machine, that allowed the Highlander to go 54 kilometers per hour, matching a lot of the other large assault mechs of the time, coupled with 6 tons of Ildco Modern 10 jump jets, giving you a 90-meter jump range, allowing it to rapidly reposition. The main weapon for the Highlander was the M7 Gauss rifle, which is mounted in the right arm, fed by 2 tons of reloads. For more long-range support, you also have a Holly 20 rack of LRM built by a Star Corps subsidiary in the left side, which is also fed by 2 tons of reload. You can stay in the fight quite some time with that kind of equipment, and it's fairly efficient. When things get a little bit closer, you get a Holly 6 tube of SRM in the opposite arm to your Gauss rifle, and 2 torso-mounted medium lasers, giving you an okay amount of punch. You get 12 standard heat sinks in order to keep everything cool. It's going to have a bit of a hard time if you really shoot everything at short range. But, if you start balancing what you're shooting and not fire that LRM-20 all the time, you'll probably be okay. 3 years down the line, in 2598, the Royal Regiment started receiving their own HGN 732B, which was the upgraded version of the Highlander. Your base design remains the same, but 2 of the heat sinks are removed while the others are replaced with double heat sinks, which is just better in general. An Artemis 4 guidance system is added to boat missile launcher, while a ton of reload for the SRM is removed to add a 3rd medium laser for more short-range firepower. The biggest problem with all of that design, including some of the original one, was that the Gauss ammunition was stored in cases. But everybody knows that, Gauss ammo doesn't explode if it's because it's just a ball of inert iron. That's a half-ton wasted on the Highlander. Maybe something could have been done for that. The Highlander would actually survive the Succession War fairly well thanks to the basic 732 design, which had limited advanced technology included in it, basically the case and ferrofibrous. Losing the ferrofibrous plating is somewhat of a big problem, but the Great House's bigger problem was that the Gauss rifle basically was not available past the end of the First Succession War. It was hard to maintain your existing Highlanders, and, they weren't really being built to that standard anymore. That's why you have a whole lot of 733 series that came out to compensate for these losses, and even existing 732s being downgraded to that 733 standard so they could be kept in service. The most basic downgraded version is the HGN 733, which replaces the Gauss rifle with a far more common Mydron Class B 10 class autocannon. You lose a lot of punch and a lot of range, but it's still a fairly decent weapon overall. You use the saved weight to add an extra 2 tons of plate, giving you about the same amount of protection as a original Highlander, even though it's a little bit heavier, just to the fact that it's a different material to use it. And you also get an extra ton of LRM reloads, even though I've seen some people move it around and get an extra ton of autocannon reload to have more specialty ammo or some SRMs, the standard is that extra ton of LRM rounds. But more modern ones probably would go with extra autocannon shots, so you can put some precision or some armor-piercing rounds in there. On the other hand, the HGN 733C is the heavy siegebreaker version of the Highlander. This one uses a 20 class autocannon instead of the Gauss rifle, so you lose a lot on range, but you gain on punch. To make room for this, some of the ammo for the SRM and the LRM are removed, however, and, it basically turns the Highlander into a heavier and a slightly more dangerous Victor. Or you could even say a lighter version of the Atlas. It really is what you want to do with it, basically. The last of the 733 series, at least the standard ones, is the 733P, which uses a common PPC, either a Lord's Light or a Particle. They weren't really picky when they were building them as their main gun. The PPC being smaller than most autocannons, the 733P uses the saved weight to boost heat dissipation by adding an extra 7 heat sinks. It is kind of needed with a PPC here, which would generate a whole lot more heat than a standard autocannon or even more than the Gauss rifle. There's also that periphery refit, the HGN 733PP, please don't laugh, which downgrades the LRM rack to a 15 rack and move things around a bit in order to put a sword in the arm opposite of the PPC. This makes it a pretty cool looking mech, even though it's not always the best. At the other end of space, the Highlander was also brought in fairly large amount by the SLDF during the whole Operation Exodus thing. There's a 2C standard, which was introduced in 2858, but I would really say that it's more of a C variant than a full-on 2C, because the chassis itself remains more or less the same. The weapon suite is more or less the same, even though it's moved around. It really is closer to that 732B. Really, it is a terrifying assault trooper, and it'll warrant its own presentation in the future. When the tech became available again, the upgrades to the Highlander came back in forms of, well, building back the 732 and the 732B rather than a brand new series of the design. People loved the darn thing, and it worked really well in fighting the clans, so why try to change something that was actually very good? The fact that it could also pound your opponent into submission if it was just your neighbor rather than a clan warrior made it even better. You will see the odd 732 with 11 double heat sinks rather than the standard, and an extra medium laser in the arm. You've got all sorts of weird experiments in that 732 series around that time, but none of them became standard. Comstar did bring out a new Highlander with the HGN 736 and 3060, trying to integrate their new C3I technology to the standard design. The main difference is that you have 10 double heat sinks rather than 12 singles from the regular 732 in order to make room for the said C3I computer. The arm-mounted SRM is replaced with a Streak 4 tubes, the same weight, more accurate, no opportunity to use specialty ammo. It is up to you. While the LRM is upgraded to a Artemis 4 guided LRM by removing a superfluous ton of Streak SRM ammo. Later on, the Lyran Alliance did introduce the HGN 734 and 3062 for that little fight that they had with the Federated Commonwealian Sun, whatever. This one uses a light engine in order to save a little bit on weight, and you've got 14 double heat sinks to keep the design fairly cool. Your main gun is now a LB-20X autocannon with 3 tons of case-protected reloads, while the opposite end carries a pair of ER medium lasers, and the center torso has a medium pulse laser. For even further backup, you have an ER large laser and a pair of Streak 6-tube SRM. You're going to be an amazing brawler with that particular design. I think it works really well in quite a few different situations, but you don't have that LRM to back you up at long range, only that ER large laser, so you do have to be a little bit more careful while getting into it with people. The Lyran Alliance did focus on designing new Highlanders during the Civil War, and they tried using them as testbed for brand new equipment. The HGN 694 mounts an heavy Gauss rifle on top of the regular Gauss rifle to give you maximum destruction potential. Your only other weapon is a pair of large laser, which give you decent close and medium range fire support, but it's a little bit risky once things get close to your mech. The Lyrans did keep going, and they introduced the HGN 738 and 3069. The main gun is now a torso-mounted heavy Gauss rifle with 3 tons of reload, which is backed by an ER large laser in the accompanying arm. Further long-range support is provided by a 15 rack of Artemis 4 guided LRMs, while at closer range you have a pair of ER medium laser and a Streak 4 tube of SRM. It's quite reasonable as a mech. It's just, fairly well balanced. I would have preferred the Gauss rifle to be in the arm like usual to give you a larger range of fire, but it's quite functional anyways. Later on, Comstar decided to use the Highlander to test even more things in 3070. You have the HGN 641X2 that did that. You can remove the X2, actually, if you want, because there's some of them that are in the production, so they would be just the HGN 641. It has an XL engine and an XL gyro in order to save on weight, while Case 2 protects the ammo and the Gauss gun. For even more protection, you get an Angel ECM with a C3 slave to help you with accuracy and guiding your different shots. A little bit weird for Comstar to use a C3 slave because they had those C3I computers, but then again, the word of Blake was the one that was more using the C3I, while the regular ComGuard was panicking and using whatever they could. Your missile launchers are replaced with a pair of MML-7 with Artemis guidance, while the medium lasers are upgraded to ER versions. The armor is made of light ferrofibrous in order to save a little bit on space, but the chassis is reinforced against blows, meaning that it's probably one of the tougher Highlanders out there. The HGN 740 came out of the Republic of the Sphere in 3115. This one has a 15 double heat sinks, which are required to cool down the capacitor-powered ERPPC, which replaces the Gauss rifle. You still have a 20 rack of LRM guided by Artemis systems, while the SRM is guided through Streak technology. The medium lasers are upgraded to ER versions and sometimes clan graded depending on the situation. Finally, each of the leg mount a pair of M-pods in order to blow up anything that gets really close to you. That's probably the one point that I don't like about this particular setup. You probably could have used those extra tons for something else, but it is overall a pretty decent Highlander. So what does Flanagan do with Highlanders? Well, one of the main things we actually do is take those old 732s and 733s and turn them into, well, various versions of the 2C. That's what people pay us for in the end. We do have common refits, though, for the regular 733s for people who are a little bit more cash-strapped. The base one is the 733F, which replaces the AC-10 with a Midron XL LB-10X. So you save a ton there, more or less, and you reskin the entire body with ferrofibrous plates and case for increased protection. You get an extra medium laser, but we mount this one in the head to spread the love around and make you a little bit more of a zombie mech. We generally also modified the heatsink system to doubles and have a targeting computer added for additional guidance on that autocannon and those medium lasers. We also have upgrade kits for different machines in the 733 series. The 733PF replaces the standard PPC with a capacitor-powered heavy PPC, while we switch the cooling system to double heatsinks and replace the plates with light ferrofibrous. The missiles are now protected by Case 2, and you get an extra laser in the head still, but it's going to run fairly hot, so just be careful if you buy that one. The CF replaces the AC-20 with a Defiance Disintegrator LB-20X with the typical double heatsinks and light ferrofibrous plates. You get regular case to protect the ammo, and it's entirely functional and remains at a very decent price point. And to finish things off, well, most people will have seen this particular machine out there, the Flying Highlander from our good friends at the Amaris stable in Solaris 7. Those guys are generally play the role of the jerks in Solaris and are very, very good at it. But they also have highly customized machines and very odd ones. The Flying Highlander has been around for a little bit. Originally, it was just cosmetic changes. The most recent version of it is mainly built off clan parts, so it's not really a Highlander. It's more of a Highlander 2C. But basically, it's a Highlander with a partial wing just to be able to jump just a little bit further, cool down a little bit quicker, and is really funny looking. Look up the various Solaris 7 matches this thing has done. It's always super entertaining. The Highlander is really what a lot of other mechs want to be. It's tough, it's reliable, it can serve as a trooper, but it can also serve as a commander or a cavalry unit in some specific cases, so it just goes above and beyond its original job description. While the numbers did dwindle during the Succession War, it exploded back into the scene as soon as it was available, and techs keep finding ways to improve them. The only real evolution for the design is really to go that 2C route nowadays, and it's still an amazing mech, even with all advanced technologies being available, as long as you're able to use them in an effective way. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.